Good morning, folks. Like politicians, PR people also like to speak to large audiences. I wish one was speaking in the evening because the audience is still trickling in. So, Satyajit Sen, Sangmeshwar Prasad Sangmeshwar, the ET brand equity team, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow professionals, travelers on the path. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you today at the India Communication Summit organized by ET Brand Equity. I think in the last 4 years it has become one of the defining events of the industry that's shaping the agenda. We have a wonderful, as Satyajit said, lineup of speakers the whole day with many illustrious speakers who will deliberate on a range of wonderful subjects ranging from the relevance of corporate storytelling to the new HPR mandate to the role of data analytics as well as other contemporary issues like diversity and inclusion. It's a subject of great satisfaction to me that the industry has bounced back in India and around the world after the early shocks of the pandemic. In fact, the relevance of public relations got established permanently in the business psyche. I wish to compliment everyone in this industry on both sides, the agency or the communication side, who held their ground and worked tirelessly as custodians of reputations in a very uncertain environment. I mean, you were almost like an essential service, like the medical fraternity or the way the work that media was doing. Our work was no less. Equally well, the industry made rapid strides during these 2 years in learnings on many fronts, from working remotely to adoption of digital tools to developing an understanding of newer narratives like purpose and ESG. Many of us on the consulting side learned new lessons in managing business in a difficult environment. The challenges of the post-pandemic world are still unfolding. I don't think we've come to terms with that yet. The physical, psychological impact of COVID and the residual impact of what we call long COVID is still to be understood fully because all the empirical data is still not in. From a direct standpoint, the impact of the Great Resignation, and you relate to it depending on where you sit, is a new challenge, though in the last 15 days or 1 month we see it tapering a little bit because of the slowdown in the economy and particularly the internet economy. Now there are some folks who do not want to come back to work. They want to be at home at all times, whether they are in Dehradun or Chikmagalur. And I can't send a mail like the one Elon Musk sent yesterday to all his people, that you either come back or you quit. This was yesterday. Now I don't have that choice, I don't have that power yet, but someday I wish I could do the same, because unless in a dialogue, business of dialogue, there has to be a hybrid work culture where some amount of balance between the two has to be maintained. There are greater challenges beyond the immediate. The complexities of the post-pandemic world of 2022 are at a new level altogether that many of us are not used to. We are trying to understand, but we are not used to them. From pervasive disruptions caused by technology, which has been well documented, to the challenges of climate change, to the war in Ukraine, to an emerging new geographical order, geopolitical order, to polarization in society on many counts, whether income or wealth or religion or race or caste. It is a nightmare of a situation. You add to that issues related to food and energy security, supply chain disruptions. There's really too much to deal with. Add to this the impact of inflation, which is now playing out globally, and the pressure on capital markets, particularly on the technology and internet economy companies. This makes the conduct of business in any society, management of business in any society, quite complex. The corporation is at the crossroads of this conflict. the business is the crossroads of this conflict, because the wealth of society is vested in the business. If you want to take a metric, the market capitalization of all companies in India at the Bombay Stock Exchange or National Stock Exchange far exceeds the GDP of India. The heightened risk environment results in a host of risks for business, with each one having a potential impact on reputation, because it is said reputation risk is the mother of all risks. Research after research amongst chief executives around the world identifies reputation risk as one that gives them sleepless nights all the time. They're most worried about that. Helping our business and our clients, depending on whether you're a comms person or an agency person, navigate the landmines of reputation risks becomes our fundamental mandate, and as a profession, we simply have to measure up. We are facing one more existential challenge: the mismatch of wage inflation and the inelasticity of fee increases. Unlike all other industries, we are unable to pass the cost increases as a PR agency, for example, to our clients. While the average wage inflation is now 15%, the average fee inflation in the industry is just 3%. How does it work out? I don't know. In the interest of everyone, the consulting firm deserves more understanding and, I would say, even empathy, if not compassion, from the demand side, which is the client side, which in other words means our present and future clients. Not addressing these issues may have a eventual impact on the service quality, given the challenges at hand. Imagine the paradox of the industry in India. America has, as reported by Holmes' report, a Provoke Media, only last week, if you're following the agency rankings, has an industry of 10.5, 11 billion. By contrast, even going by liberal estimates, the size of the Indian industry is at best $300 million. The population, as we all know, 30 crores versus 140 crores, 300 million versus 10 billion. There is a paradox there. The paradox doesn't end here. The socio-cultural, religious, political, and media complexity is inversely proportional in the Indian context. How many all religions here? 40 languages in which newspapers are published, thousands of newspapers, hundreds of television news channels, exploding digital influencer environment, lots of issues happening there. The number of languages we deal in, the scale of the media industry, the exploding digital influencer environment, the lack of journalistic rigor, and I think we should call it out once in a while when you have the stage. Not always, but in many cases, the lack of journalistic rigor in some pockets, and finally the poor and slow judicial and redressal mechanisms for damaged reputations makes for a cocktail of challenges for the PR practitioner, unlike anywhere else. What I meant was that if you are in the US or UK or Germany, you do a story which is not properly considered, you do speculative and hurt somebody, you can go to the court and in 2 months the judgment comes. In India, the litigants on both sides are dead because the judgment comes after 30 years and finally there's a fine of only 1,000 rupees. Those of you who are following these things would know. If reputation is so important as a tangible competitive differentiator, then it calls for some introspection on the investments that need to be made. You cannot have the same retainer fee, and I'm talking to MNCs particularly, that you pay in Dubai, which is a country of 60 people, one language, or in Singapore, 60 lakh people, not 60, 60 lakh people, two languages, both controlled environments. There's never a negative story against anybody because the government controls everything. You pay the same fees for that in Dubai and Singapore, and the same in India with 140 crore people, and the environment is as nightmarish as it can get. I just want this subject to be reflected on. I'll take a minute more. Before I end, I would like to draw the attention of this house to need for upgrading skills and competencies to match the challenges we are supposed to address. Reading a newspaper is not enough, and I'll give you one personal experience. I've done at least a few thousand interviews in the last 25 years. And one of the questions that I commonly asked to a practitioner who's been in the business for some time, have you read a single book on public relations since you joined the practice of public relations? You will be surprised to know that 98 to 99% of people have one common answer, and that answer is no. Now, if you juxtapose this against the complexities I just described, or earlier Shatrajit described, you know what's the gap? It's a serious matter. We can have a drink and forget about it yet again, but it's a gap. Maybe the small consultancies cannot afford it, the learning and development programs, but what about the corporations? What about the larger agencies? Are they doing enough? In my humble opinion, the investments on both sides of the industry leaves a lot of scope for improvement. If someone may be naturally thinking that I am overstating or exaggerating the case, the point, in my humble opinion, is that I am not. PR operates at the intersection of media, of markets, of public policy, and many other forces serving as watchdogs of society. Because in an intense environment, everybody is trying to be protective about everybody. The scale of activism that we see now has never been seen before. As an industry, we have to measure up to play the role expected of us in protecting companies, our own companies and our clients if you're on the agency side. Forums like the India Communication Summit are very helpful for a dialogue. The agenda for discussion must reflect the challenges we face and also potential solutions to do better for all the time. The situation demands also a sense of urgency. I wish you a great time today. It will be a day full of insights, perspectives, and learnings from some wonderful speakers. I wish to thank the organizers of the summit for giving me a chance to share some of my thoughts. Thank you. Jai Hind.